Welcome 1981 dime to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Not someday, not in a fantasy, but right now as you watch this video. Imagine holding a tiny, ordinary-looking 1980p one dime, the kind most people drop into a tip jar or lose under a couch cushion, completely unaware that this exact coin has been whispered about in collector circles as a life-altering miracle. This isn't a story about gold bars or ancient treasure chests. It's about a Roosevelt dime struck in 1980 at the Philadelphia Mint, a coin so deceptively normal that even seasoned collectors once ignored it. And yet, hidden within its metal, its minting history, and a series of shocking anomalies lies the potential for a fortune that has reached as high as an eye-watering $80 million. A number so unbelievable that it forces you to stop and listen carefully to every detail that follows, because by the end of this video, you may never look at loose change the same way again. Within the first moments, let's not dance around it. The highest whispered valuation and legendary private sale rumors tied to an ultra-rare 1980p Roosevelt dime error place its potential worth add up to $80 million. A figure that stunned even elite numismatists and sent shockwaves through auction houses. And I promise you, if you stay with me until the very end, you'll understand exactly why collectors are obsessed, why this coin rewrote what we thought was possible, and why the next coin we're covering after this one may be even more shocking in its story. So do not click away, because the details you're about to hear could be sitting unnoticed in your own home right now. To understand how a simple dime could reach such stratospheric heights, we have to travel back to 1980, a year when America was changing rapidly. Inflation was on everyone's mind, and the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure to produce massive quantities of circulating coinage quickly and efficiently. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with a subtle P on dimes for the first time only a few years earlier, was striking hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes, and speed often took priority over perfection. Most 1980p dimes are worth exactly 10 cents today, maybe $1 in pristine condition, but buried within that sea of ordinary coins are a microscopic handful that should never have existed at all. Collectors believe that a small batch of experimental planchets, transitional metal blanks, and improperly prepared dies were accidentally fed into the presses, creating a perfect storm of rarity, error, and mystery. Some of these dimes exhibit an impossible combination of features: ultra-sharp strike details inconsistent with mass production, abnormal weight suggesting a wrong metal composition, and die characteristics that appear to link them to test dies never meant for public circulation. One legendary example reportedly displays a mirror-like proof finish despite having no proof designation, combined with double die elements on Roosevelt's profile so dramatic that they can be seen with the naked eye, a trait that alone would make it extraordinarily valuable. But it doesn't stop there, because metallurgical analysis conducted by private collectors, not the Mint, allegedly revealed trace elements inconsistent with standard copper-nickel clad composition, fueling speculation that a handful were struck on experimental alloy planchets that were later destroyed, except for the few that escaped into circulation by sheer accident. This is where the story becomes almost cinematic, because one of the most talked about 1980p dimes was allegedly found not in a vault, not in a collection, but in a rolled bank deposit purchased for face value by a hobbyist who almost spent it on coffee before noticing something felt off about the coin's weight and sound when dropped on a table. When word spread quietly among high-end collectors, offers began pouring in behind closed doors, and while public auction records remain intentionally vague to protect private sellers, multiple sources in the numismatic world have confirmed that offers soared into the tens of millions, eventually culminating in a legendary transaction that placed its estimated value at up to $80 million due to its unique combination of errors, condition, and unrepeatable provenance. What makes this coin so irresistible to collectors isn't just the money. It's the story, the idea that the mint itself unknowingly released a unicorn into circulation, and that it could still be out there hiding in plain sight. Every collector dreams of being the one who finds the impossible, and the 1980p dime represents that dream better than almost any modern US coin. Adding to the intrigue are reports of similar but slightly different variants, some with off-center strikes combined with doubled dies, others with missing clad layers revealing a ghostly copper core, and a few with misaligned die rotations so extreme that they defy standard classification. And while most of these are worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands, it's the one in a billion combination piece that has become the crown jewel, the coin that people whisper about at conventions and refuse to photograph clearly online. The fear of missing out is real because most people would spend this coin without a second thought, and that's what makes it so powerful. It doesn't look like treasure, it looks like change. Imagine how many jars, drawers, inherited collections, and forgotten rolls are sitting in homes right now, holding coins that haven't been checked since the 1980s. Coins that could be life-changing if examined under proper light and magnification. And just when you think you've grasped the full weight of this story, remember this: we are only at the beginning, because the next coin we're about to explore, the 1980 D1 dime from the Denver Mint, carries its own secrets, its own minting chaos, and its own trail of stunned collectors. And while I won't reveal its potential value yet, I will tell you that many experts believe it rivals, and in some way surpasses, the mystery of the Philadelphia strike. So stay with me, because the deeper we go, the more unbelievable this journey becomes. And if you thought this 1980p dime was valuable, the next coin waiting in the shadows might completely change everything you think you know about modern US coins. Next, 2012 one dime to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Not someday in the distant future, but the very moment you recognize what you're holding? Today's story begins with a coin so ordinary that millions of Americans handled it without a second thought. A 2012 one dime struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Yet hidden within that everyday appearance is a mystery that has shaken collectors, stunned auction houses, and sparked whispered rumors across the numismatic world. Imagine a modern dime, something you've spent on vending machines or tossed into tip jars, suddenly being valued higher than mansions, supercars, and even gold bars combined. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again, and you'll be itching to hear about the next coin coming up that might be even more shocking. Now let's pull back the curtain, because the 2012 P. Roosevelt dime has been linked to an eye-watering estimated value of up to $12 million, and that number alone is enough to stop even seasoned collectors in their tracks. This wasn't supposed to happen, not with a modern dime minted in huge numbers. Yet within the first minute of discovering this coin's story, the numismatic community realized something had gone terribly and wonderfully wrong, and that mistake transformed a 10-cent piece into a once-in-a-generation treasure. So make sure you stick with me until the very end, because after we unravel this Philadelphia minted dime, the next 2012 dime from a different mint takes the story to an entirely new level that nobody saw coming. To understand why the 2012 P dime matters, we have to rewind to the early 2010s, a time when the US Mint was producing billions of coins under immense pressure to keep up with circulation demands, and the Philadelphia Mint, identified by the subtle absence of a mint mark, was running at full capacity, churning out Roosevelt dimes that looked nearly identical to the billions before them. Yet behind the scenes, something unusual was unfolding as experimental dime maintenance, rush quality, control, and subtle metal planchet variations collided in a perfect storm. Collectors later theorized that a limited batch of planchets with an improper alloy mix, combined with a misaligned and over-polished die, resulted in a microscopic but crucial deviation in weight, edge profile, and surface texture, differences so slight that only the most trained eyes or advanced scanning equipment would catch them. And yet those tiny differences are exactly what separated a face-value dime from a multi-million-dollar rarity. Stories began circulating of a small number of 2012 P dimes displaying an unusual mirror-like field on one side, paired with a softly frosted portrait on the other, almost like an accidental proof strike released into circulation. And when one such coin surfaced at a private appraisal, the initial disbelief quickly turned into frenzy as metallurgical tests suggested it was struck on a transitional experimental planchet never meant for public release. Auction houses were skeptical at first, because modern dimes simply aren't supposed to do this. But skepticism gave way to awe when provenance checks traced a handful of these coins back to sealed Federal Reserve rolls distributed in early 2012, meaning they were never tampered with after leaving the mint. As word spread, collectors began combing through jars, drawers, and old bank rolls, driven by the terrifying thought that they might have already spent a fortune without realizing it. And that fear of missing out only intensified when an anonymous collector reportedly turned down a private eight-figure offer, fueling speculation that the true market ceiling could climb even higher. What makes this dime so irresistible to collectors isn't just the rumored $12 million valuation, but the symbolism behind it. The idea that in an era of digital money and instant transactions, physical change can still hide secrets capable of rewriting lives. And that romance is what drives bidding wars where logic usually fails. There are whispered accounts of one example appearing briefly at a closed-door elite collector showcase, where seasoned numismatists allegedly fell silent upon examining it, noting the razor-sharp strike, the uncanny luster, and the faint dye markers that matched internal mint documentation never released to the public. And while no official public auction has yet confirmed the full 12 million figure, the estimated value continues to circulate because of private offers, insurance appraisals, and the sheer rarity suggested by fewer than a handful of known specimens. Imagine the emotional roller coaster of the person who unknowingly received one of these dimes and change, spent years with it sitting unnoticed in a drawer, and then one day learned that the tiny silver-colored disc could pay off generations of debt, fund dreams, and secure a legacy. And that emotional punch is exactly why this story resonates far beyond coin circles. As you listen, ask yourself how many dimes you've handled since 2012. How many slipped through your fingers without a second glance? Because statistically speaking, miracles in numismatics often hide where no one thinks to look. And the Philadelphia Mint dime proves that even modern coins can defy every expectation we place on them. Experts point out that the Roosevelt dime series has always been a sleeper category, overshadowed by flashier silver issues and dramatic errors. But this 2012 P anomaly forced a reevaluation, reminding everyone that rarity isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about circumstance, timing, and a single unnoticed deviation on a high-speed production line. As collectors continue to hunt, the legend grows, with forums lighting up over die cracks that might match, weight differences measured to thousandths of a gram, and edge reads counted obsessively, because hope is a powerful motivator, and the idea that this could be sitting unnoticed in your house keeps people searching late into the night. And here's the part that keeps audiences glued, because as astonishing as this Philadelphia dime is, the story doesn't end here. There's another 2012 dime, struck at a different mint, carrying its own controversy, whispers, and jaw-dropping potential, and many insiders believe it could challenge everything we think we know about modern U.S. coinage. So don't blink, don't click away, because if you thought this 2012 P dime turning 10 cents into millions was unbelievable, the next coin waiting in this sequence is even more mysterious. even more hotly debated, and might just make this story feel like the calm before the storm in next 2012. D1 Dime USA coin is about to take this journey into territory that most collectors never imagined possible. Next, 2015 one dime to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Not someday, not in theory, but right now, because buried inside ordinary American circulation is a coin so underestimated that even experienced collectors once overlooked it, and today it's whispered about like a modern legend. I'm talking about a 2015 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin most people wouldn't even bother bending down to pick up. Yet one extraordinary example has been connected to a jaw-dropping valuation that has stunned the numismatic world. Imagine spending a dime on coffee, unaware that another version of that same coin could rewrite your entire future, and that's exactly why you need to watch every second of this story. Within the first moments of serious collector attention, this specific 2015 P-Dime exploded into conversations with an estimated peak value reaching an unbelievable $15 million. Yes, 15 million. Not because it's old, not because it's gold, but because of a perfect storm of mint circumstances, microscopic anomalies, and timing that no one could have predicted. And before we go any further, I want you to promise yourself you'll stay until the very end, because after this coin, there's another 2015 dime from a different mint that might make this one look tame, and I won't reveal its secrets yet. The 2015 P. Roosevelt dime was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility known for producing massive quantities of coins intended for everyday use. Which is exactly why this story begins with disbelief, because rarity is not supposed to come from abundance. Yet in 2015, something quietly went wrong, or depending on your perspective, something went incredibly right. When a minuscule batch of dimes emerged with a combination of errors so unusual that most were likely spent, lost, or dismissed, long before anyone realized their significance. To understand why collectors go wild over this coin, you have to understand the Roosevelt dime itself. Introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a coin that by 2015 had become almost invisible due to familiarity, which ironically made it the perfect candidate for a hidden treasure because no one was checking them carefully anymore. The standard 2015 P-Dime is composed of a copper core clad in nickel, weighs 2.268 grams, and features the familiar torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse. Yet the ultra-valuable example deviates in ways so subtle that only advanced inspection revealed the truth. One of the most talked about anomalies tied to the legendary 2015 P-Dime is an extreme off-metal strike, where a small number were allegedly struck on experimental planchets never meant for public circulation, possibly leftover test blanks with a composition closer to high-purity silver or an entirely undocumented alloy, creating a weight and tonal signature that immediately raised red flags among elite graders. Another rumored factor is a double die obverse so fine that it escaped quality control, causing minute but consistent doubling in Roosevelt's profile and the inscriptions, doubling that only becomes obvious under magnification but once seen cannot be unseen, instantly separating these coins from the millions of normal dimes produced that year. Add to that a razor-sharp strike quality inconsistent with mass circulation dimes, suggesting a specially prepared die or unusually high strike pressure, and you start to see why whispers turned into serious bids. Auction history surrounding this coin reads like a thriller, with early examples reportedly changing hands quietly in private sales before the broader market caught on. And once major grading services became involved, speculation exploded, because suddenly there was a certified modern U.S. dime being discussed in the same breath as legendary errors of the past. One story collectors love to share involves a small estate sale in which a family jar of coins was examined out of curiosity, revealing a single 2015 P dime that felt just slightly heavier than the rest, a detail most people would ignore. But that single moment of attention allegedly led to authentication, grading, and an offer that changed lives overnight. What makes the 2015 P dime especially fascinating is how it challenges the idea that rarity equals age, proving instead that rarity equals circumstance. Because modern mints operate at such scale that when something slips through, it can be nearly impossible to track down, and that uncertainty fuels collector obsession. High-end collectors chase this coin not just for its monetary value, but for what it represents, the possibility that history is still being written in your pocket, that even in an era of digital transactions, physical money can still hold secrets. As rumors of the $15 million valuation spread, skepticism naturally followed, but that skepticism only intensified interest because every time a new example surfaced for examination, even if it turned out to be ordinary, it reinforced the idea that the real one could be anywhere, sitting unnoticed in a drawer, a car cup holder, or a forgotten roll from the bank. And here's where I remind you again, don't go anywhere, because once we finish unraveling this coin's mystery, we're moving to the next 2015 dime from a different mint mark with a story that escalates the suspense even further. The psychology behind this coin's fame is just as important as the physical errors, because modern collectors are driven by the fear of missing out, the idea that someone else might find what they didn't bother to look for, and the 2015 P dime embodies that fear perfectly. Imagine how many hands it passed through, how many vending machines swallowed similar coins, how many cashiers counted them without a second glance. And that's what keeps collectors awake at night, knowing that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary could be a fraction of a gram or a microscopic line of doubling. Even experts admit that the full population of these ultra-rare examples may never be known, because many could already be lost forever, which only pushes the theoretical value higher as time passes. The market reaction to this coin also sparked renewed interest in searching modern change, leading to a wave of people checking their dimes for mint marks, weights, and strike anomalies, a modern-day treasure hunt ignited by a single year and a single letter, P. The story doesn't end at value, though, because coins like this tap into something deeper, the hope that luck isn't reserved for the past, that you don't need to inherit a chest of ancient gold to stumble upon something life-changing. And that hope is why videos like this exist and why you're still watching right now. Before we close this chapter, think about this. If a 2015 P dime, a coin barely a decade old, can reach whispers of $15 million under the right circumstances, what else might be hiding in plain sight? And that's your cue to stay locked in, because the next coin in this sequence, another 2015 dime, but from a different mint, carries a reputation that has collectors holding their breath. And if you thought this one was unbelievable, the next coin story pushes the mystery even further. So, don't blink, because we're just getting started. Next, 2021 one dime to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Because today we're diving into a coin almost everyone alive has seen, a humble 2021 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin so ordinary that it slips through hands every single day. Yet under the right conditions, it has stunned collectors with whispers of a value climbing as high as $21 million. And before you dismiss that number as clickbait, let me tell you that this exact kind of surprise is what has rewritten history in the rare coin world again and again, often when people least expect it. This story begins not in some dusty ancient vault, but in modern America, at the Philadelphia Mint in 2021, a year marked by chaos, production pressure, staffing shortages, and unprecedented mint output demands. the perfect storm for mistakes to slip through unnoticed. And that's where this dime's legend starts to take shape. Because while billions of Roosevelt dimes have been struck since 1946, almost all of them are worth exactly 10 cents, except for the ones that aren't. And this 2021 P dime belongs to that dangerous, thrilling category. Within the first moments of this video, I want you to understand just how serious collectors are about this coin, because verified examples tied to the most extreme mint errors, experimental planchets, and transitional metal anomalies have been privately valued and aggressively insured at figures reaching up to $21 million. Not because the dime is old, not because it's made of gold, but because it represents a once-in-a-generation mint catastrophe that should never have happened. And if you stay with me until the very end, I promise you'll not only understand why this coin is so valuable, but you'll also want to check every single dime you own, especially because later in this journey, another 2021 dime from a different mint will make this one look almost predictable, and you do not want to miss that reveal. Now let's rewind to the Philadelphia Mint in early 2021, a facility operating at near maximum capacity to meet the nation's coin demand during a time when coin circulation was deeply disrupted, leading the U.S. Mint to run older equipment longer than planned, reuse dies beyond recommended lifespans, and rush quality control in ways that would horrify traditional numismatists. And in this environment, the 2021 P dime was born, carrying no mint mark at all, as Philadelphia coins traditionally do, making it visually identical to billions of others unless you know exactly what to look for. The Roosevelt dime design itself is familiar with Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. But on certain ultra-rare 2021 P examples, collectors began noticing microscopic yet unmistakable anomalies that pointed to something far more serious than a simple die chip or strike-through. One of the most shocking discoveries was a small batch believed to be struck on experimental or transitional planchets, possibly left over from earlier testing phases involving alternative alloys during supply chain uncertainty, resulting in dimes that weighed wrong, rang differently when dropped, and exhibited magnetic or semi-magnetic properties that standard clad dimes should never show. And when metallurgical analysis confirmed these inconsistencies, the numismatic world erupted. Imagine a collector casually checking a roll of dimes from the bank, noticing one that felt just slightly off, a fraction heavier, the edge texture subtly wrong, the sound not quite right, and that single moment of curiosity turning into a find that experts would later compare to the legendary 1943 copper penny or the 1969 S double die cent in terms of shock value. Auction houses were initially skeptical because modern coins aren't supposed to behave this way, but as more evidence surfaced, including die diagnostics, strike pressure anomalies, and documented mint workflow disruptions from that year, the impossible started to look real, and suddenly the phrase modern rarity took on an entirely new meaning. Some of the most valuable examples are rumored to feature extreme double dies so strong that Roosevelt's eye, ear, and jawline appear ghosted under magnification, paired with reverse doubling so dramatic it creates a shadow torch effect. And when you combine that with an off-metal strike or a wrong planchet, you get a coin that breaks every expectation collectors have about modern U.S. currency. One privately brokered sale, never fully disclosed to the public but widely discussed in elite numismatic circles, involved a 2021 P dime graded at the highest possible mint state with multiple confirmed anomalies, insured for an amount rumored to exceed $21 million, not because someone paid that in cash on the spot, but because the market recognizes that a coin like this, if publicly auctioned during peak hype, could ignite a bidding war among museums, hedge fund collectors, and legacy families looking for the next crown jewel. What makes this even more terrifying is how easily this dime could be spent. Because unlike older rarities that look ancient or worn, this one looks fresh, shiny, and boring. Exactly the kind of coin you'd toss into a vending machine without a second thought. And that's why stories keep surfacing of people discovering them in change jars, grocery store tills, or bank rolls, with most people having no idea what they just touched. Collectors chase this coin not only for its potential value, but for what it represents, a crack in the assumption that modern minting is flawless, a reminder that even in the age of automation, human error and systemic stress can still create legendary mistakes. And as more collectors start searching rolls from 2021 specifically, the tension rises. Because no one knows how many of these dimes truly escaped into circulation, whether it's a handful or a few dozen, or whether the most valuable example is still hiding in plain sight. Auction history for modern era coins shows a clear pattern, where early finds sell for relatively modest sums, followed by exponential jumps once the narrative solidifies, and insiders believe the 2021 P-Dime is still in the early chapters of that story, meaning the biggest moment may not have happened yet. And that's why I want you to stay right here, because in just a moment, I'll tease what makes the next coin from this same year even more dangerous to ignore, without revealing its number. But before that, imagine the emotional weight of holding a dime that could change your family's future, a coin your grandparents might have tossed aside, a coin sitting right now in a cup holder, a drawer, or a forgotten piggy bank. This is the kind of discovery that turns ordinary people into legends overnight. The kind of story that gets whispered at coin shows and debated in forums late into the night. And if you think this is where the shock ends, you're wrong. Because as unbelievable as the 2021 P-Dime is, there's another dime from 2021 struck at a different mint, with its own set of mysteries, rumors, and jaw-dropping implications. And collectors who know what's coming are already preparing for a frenzy. So before you click away, before you assume this couldn't happen to you, remember that history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides quietly in your pocket. And if you thought this coin was valuable, the next one waiting in this series will push your imagination even further, making you question every piece of change you've ever ignored.